Hello, Juan. Jai Shri Mataji.
Jai Shri uncle. Thanks for having me back on again.
How are you?
I'm very good.
We
Ready
pretend
for another
we pretend
discussion.
we didn't talk 5 minutes before that because it's five past one. Anyway, very
Uh-huh.
very happy to talk with you again, Juan, and say
Pleasure.
hello. We will say hello to everybody who is watching us, and thank you for that.
Definitely.
Not too many people, but really doesn't matter. We want to leave those um, re recallings, these
Mhm.
memories
Mhm.
for the people who will want to or to be interested in what's happened in Sahaja Yoga in 2026 in January, February.
Mhm.
So the reason we start this conversation, apart from the fact that I like to talk with Juan, and we've been quite close in the tour. The reason is we don't have time to share our impression in the tour. We've been in the same tour in the south, but we don't have time to share our impression, general impression or particular one. So I ask Juan to do that for us, and I will ask few other people, the one who will be available. I have no preferences. So
Mhm.
we've been about 3 weeks in the tour, and after that, we've been more than 1 week, about 10 days in the camp. So the whole event for us lasted a month. For me, more than a month with the journey back and forward. So can you please tell me in whatever order you wanted? I suggest you to talk about the peaks. What was the most important things for you? What was the less uh, good experiences? But please tell me whatever you want.
Well, I first actually want to begin by explaining like something interesting that happened before I arrived in Brazil. So uh, throughout 2025, I was making preparations to purchase tickets and doing the application to be part of the tour. My mum is the one who found out about the tour, so she's the one who told me about it and really pushed me to be part of it. And I definitely saw it as another opportunity to reinsert myself into any Sahaj related activity because over the past few years I've been sort of on the periphery in a way. And so what happened was I had a bit of a negligence on my part where I didn't read properly the rules about the visa. That ever since of April of last year, the government changed the rules that people from countries like Australia and others need to have an e-visa if they want to get into Brazil, and I didn't check that properly. I Because I was relying on the information given by the consul in Australia saying that wasn't necessary. So what happened was when I had to do the check-in for the flights that I had booked in, I booked to arrive at say Florianopolis, the first city, a couple of days before the tour actually started. At the end, it gave me a reminder saying make sure to have a physical copy of your e-visa. And I was like, oh, interesting. I thought I didn't need a visa. And then I looked it up again and said, yeah. And get this, this is at least a couple of days before my flight. And I straight away went into panic mode and just, applied for an e-visa by the platform iVisa. There, they give you the option to decide how quick you want to get it. And the fastest option is like within 5 days. And I'm like 2 days away. And I was like straight away, like, just stressing out, did everything I needed to, paid what I had to. So much that my mom was sort of pushing me to get in contact with the platform and ask them to please prioritize my case because I am 2 days out and because of my negligence I'm in the situation. And yeah, they did exactly that. Um, but the thing is, uh, what's interesting is that the reason I'm telling this is as a way to show how I think the divine works in such mysterious ways. Because get this, my initial idea was to simply just be there for the tour. My initial interest wasn't in staying around for the seminar. So I decided, because of this mix up, it's possible that I'm going to have to rebook the flight because I don't know when the visa is going to arrive. Because I put the quick option, and that it says minimum 5 days, and I'm 2 days away. So my feeling was, chances are I'm going to have to reschedule the flight. But yeah, that night, me and my mom, we meditated, we put a bun on and everything. Um, so the next day I decided, you know what, I'm probably just gonna have to reschedule anyway. So I decided to reschedule it for to arrive on Sunday. And the reason I did it was because Sunday was the last day we'd be in Florianopolis. And then after that we were up to Campinas. If I was gonna say make changes to go to Campinas, it would have been more expensive, more complicated. So I had to like be strategic about how I decide how I'm going to change the flight. So I decided to do that. It meant that yes, I'm going to lose about 3 days of what I was going to have if I had arrived earlier. But then an idea came to my mind, realized that at that point, registration hadn't closed yet for the seminar. I thought, you know what? Maybe this negligence of mine had to happen. And then the consequences motivated me to say, okay, you know what? As a way to compensate for the days that I lost because of this negligence of mine, maybe I should stay for the seminar. And that's exactly what I did. So then on Wednesday, so I decided, yeah, I'm going to reschedule for the Sunday. The visa will arrive when it arrives. And this was on Tuesday. Uh, and so then Wednesday, which was the original date of my flight, in the afternoon, the visa was already there. But I said, it was better this way because that way I didn't want to be rushing anything. So I think that just right before I even arrived in Brazil, it was a really interesting sort of thing that happened to me, which ultimately motivated me to decide, yeah, you know what, if I'm going to be part of the tour, I might as well stay back for the seminar as well. Like, so I think all of it was coordinated in a way which and I think that had to happen, in a nutshell. So yeah, finally all the stress was gone, a minor step back, if you will, but I think it was for the better because it made me realize, yeah, the divine can work in such interesting ways, contrary to what you had initially planned. Um, so yeah, I'd arrived in Florianopolis on the last day when they'd already done the programs and everything. So pretty much a rest day. I got to meet a lot of people that some people are already familiar faces, but I did get to meet a lot of like people that I hadn't yet met before. And yeah, I was already definitely enjoying it, going to the beach and everything. Um, so so yeah, from that
I want
point is
to
when we got onto the bus.
I want to
Yeah,
come back a little bit to this chain of events. So
yeah,
in the end, this mistake of yours help you to basically stay with the seminar and stay for the
yeah,
puja, which I want to
yeah.
bring again. Uh, for me, it's quite important the seminar and the puja. If you ask me to choose, I will and choose only one option. I will choose puja always. But I also meet people who, okay, you cannot put you in their shoes. They have no other choices than to go only for the tour, not being to the puja. But for me, if I have this option, I will always choose the puja. Uh, the tour is very important, giving realization to the people of different culture and different countries.
Mhm.
But like I said, for me, the epitome is the puja and the seminar and the Havan, which I still believe we don't give the proper importance to the Havan. So we have two Havans, one in Florianopolis just before we start everything else. Was the first main event for at least for us. I'm not sure the other tours how they proceed, but we have this Havan, and obviously we have the Havan before the Mahashivaratri Puja.
Yeah.
So um, again, we talk with this day with Delia, looking for the next events, next tours, and things like that. So both of us were thinking that if we will go in some other places, also we should choose something, one event who have a puja as well, not only the tour.
Are you thinking of going to the Guru Puja that they have prepared and that the Europe tour?
Ah, the Europe tour. But it's we are looking for something in the next probably in the next year. So we've been in
Yeah.
so many places lately, so it's better to hold on a second.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah. Lay
yes,
off a bit. I mean, I myself spent quite a bit as well on this trip, but
absolutely. So you have to recover
I,
both physically and financially.
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
So we start in Florianopolis.
yeah,
You come a bit late. Some people
yeah,
come in the 22nd, 23rd.
yeah.
So how was your uh, experience in Florianopolis?
As brief as it was, it was quite interesting because I had arrived on a Saturday night, so like before midnight. So at the Airbnb which I was staying at, everyone was like fast asleep, so I was trying to be as quiet as possible. But they had prepared a mattress for me, a very big one. But the problem was, what I didn't realize was that the mattress, it's one of those mattresses that has a foam like base, and the thing is, the soft part which you're supposed to lie on, whoever set it up, they put the upper part facing downwards and the base facing upwards. But for some reason, I thought, no, this is just one of those mattresses, might as well accept. But then it was so uncomfortable sleeping on such a hard surface. I was like, I can barely sleep, and there was like a bit of mosquitoes. But rather than looking into, hey, is this mattress even well positioned now? I was quite tired after like the long trip I had gone through from Australia, that I sort of went with it, and it was quite uncomfortable really, but I just I tolerated it, and yeah, like despite that, I was able to wake up quite early for the morning meditation, got to see the sunrise right where the beach is, because we were right next to the beach side, um, and yeah, it was quite brief actually. It wasn't much, other than just enjoying really. Um, it was and then that night, is when we headed off to Campinas because that night we headed at like 9 p.m. right, and this is why I decided that if I was going to come late, I need to make sure that it at least is at Florianopolis and not another city because with LATAM, the airline that I was using, they have limited flights, and even if I chose an early flight in I think it was Sunday, I would have arrived way after the time that all of us parted to Campinas. So yeah, when you're sort of trying to reschedule this sort of thing, it's also a question of being strategic because with Latam, in my case, I can either get a refund or I can simply change the date. But in this case, the designated destination, which was Florianopolis, but then changing different city is going to be more expensive. And the thing is, I had already had to pay an extra money just to reschedule the flight back to Australia because I decided that I would stay for the seminar. So I had to pay like an extra $500 to change the date of the flight. Um, but yeah, I'd say that was the moment where the real action started because yeah, we're off to a different city, and now I'm actually going to start getting involved in say the programs, the preparation, and that sort of thing. So maybe the rest day that I had arrived in at Florianopolis was sort of like I wouldn't say the calm before the storm, but I'd say like the calm before the action, the
Yes.
rest before the action, the rest much
Yeah.
needed rest after having arrived at Florianopolis after the long flight. Um, but yeah, we got to go to the countryside in Campinas, a really nice place that we got to stay over there in the countryside.
Before Campinas,
And I think
before Campinas, how you find the place in Florianopolis? How you find the beach and everything, comparing with Aussie? Because for us was nearly like in our beaches, very close to our town. So
yeah,
when I just go to the beach and see the view from the deck of the house was nearly 100% as we have here 20K far away from, so for us was very close to what we have in our beaches around the small town we live. How was for you?
the thing is that someone who doesn't like really, who doesn't live close to a beach, and I rarely go to the beach. I just thought of it as like, oh yeah, like another, sort of scenic spot by the water, and it was located in a pretty like calm area of Florianopolis. Because generally people have the sensation that Brazil, it's a very dangerous place. You got to be careful where you go. But it was an interesting choice. I mean, I think it was because it's right where like what's the name of that auntie that lives in Florianopolis who accompanied us. I think it was close to where she lives.
Yeah,
So
Giselle.
you can see why
Giselle.
yeah, yeah, it's very quiet, it's a very chill sort of area, an area which you're not afraid of like muggings and that sort of thing. And yeah, it was nice. It was calm,
But very
very, very
busy.
serene,
But
quite
very
busy.
busy,
Yeah,
very busy again comparing with our places. So our places are nearly the same, but without people, very few
yeah,
people. Uh,
yeah.
Even in the weekends, when obviously people are more, yeah, prone to go to the
It was
beach.
definitely calm compared to say the beaches, the big beaches that we have here in Sydney, whether it's Bondi, whether it's Bronte, Manly. Yeah, you could say it was calm, and you can tell, yeah, there's a reason why they chose this particular area because otherwise you don't want to go to like a crowded beach where anything can happen. Um, Definitely, yeah, a good spot to be resting.
Okay, so you've been to the first program in Florianopolis?
No, unfortunately not. I arrived when that was already done.
Okay, next day we have the second program
Hmm.
in the Botanic Garden. So you missed that one too.
Missed everything in Florianopolis
Okay,
except for the last
so
day.
we go to Campinas in a very fancy buses,
Hmm.
reclinable chairs, view, everything. But for me, the choice of traveling night wasn't the best one. That doesn't work for me in terms of having enough sleep and being. But for the majority of people, which was much younger,
Yeah.
probably was working. How was for you this experience?
Well, as someone who has a habit of often sleeping late, it was something which I thought, it's part of the travel experience. Um, it's obviously it's not the same as lying down on your bed. You got to sleep in a particular position because it's sitting down. Um, yeah, it can be uncomfortable, and sometimes the discomfort can wake you up in the middle of the night. Um, but yeah, I was able to manage, but still, I definitely feel like I could have slept better. That's why when we arrived at our destinations, in every instance when we were traveling by night, there was still a sense of, oh, I'm still yearning for a bit more rest, and I'm just going to lie down on the bed to make up for whatever rest I didn't properly get when I was on the bus. Um, but it wasn't really that bad for me, but it's not something that I'm very much used to, having to sleep while in motion.
Something I remember now talking with you about that. I remember when I see you for the first time was
Yeah.
in Campinas in
Yeah.
a dorm. We've been together, and I remember you from that dorm. We have few men dorms, and we've
Yeah.
been in one. And now I remember the first time when I meet you, because um, I ask you kindly to let me choose that bed you
Yeah.
already choose, and you do that for me, and I thank you. Although we have to move after that, but doesn't really matter. The gesture is gesture. So
Actually, no, the first time we met was at Florianopolis. Remember when we had a bit of a chat in the
yes,
Airbnb that we
y-
were staying? Yeah, before
yes,
we went to the beach, we were talking a little bit about, I think Spanish politics it was, about, Miguel de Unamuno. It was brief. And then after that, that's when I headed off to the beach. But then I think at that moment you were sitting down with some other people and, you wanted to have a bit of a chat with them.
yeah. Yes, bringing that into discussion, also, I have to tell the people who are watching us that, at least for me, but I believe for a few other people, the discussion with you was was a pleasure and also very informative because not too many Sahaja Yogi are interested in this broad um, um, area of information in politics, in sociology, in history, and this kind of subjects. And I find in you a very interesting partner of discussion. So yeah, talking about Florianopolis, yes, I remember now. Um, it's good. It's good to be informed, to be up to date, to know what's happened, not making an obsession about that. That's a completely different
Of
thing. I
course, yeah,
remember,
being a witness,
yes,
as
if
we know
if
very
you
well.
if you can, but the other option, not being interested at all in
Yeah,
this kind of stuff just because you are above everything else is
yeah.
not.
Because if anything, like Shamaji even talks about in her speeches about
Yes,
references of things that happened in history. Even Shamaji like had her insights into like uh yeah history in general. So
but also she speak very clear and advise people to be informed, to read the newspaper. And sometimes she's very critical, especially with the women who are not interested at all in this kind of stuff, at least from the period when she talked on these speeches, and
yeah.
the woman from those collectives.
As long as one is a detached witness when they're looking into that sort of thing, yeah, it's fine. Because otherwise, if you get attached and you get obsessed, and that's another thing.
Yeah, knowing the history, knowing the reasons, see what's happened in the world, not being very attached on one side or the other.
Yeah,
It's good. It's good because if you don't know what's happened, you don't know how to react and how to be not only prepare but also do something about some putting attention in the wrong things in this world. So
yeah.
Campinas. So
Hmm.
how was Campinas for you?
It was nice, being having accommodation over in the countryside. Yeah, what I always love about traveling, is when you get to see the countryside, the views, the landscapes that exist on along the way. So yeah, when we went to Campinas, we stopped over there. We stopped in Campinas for accommodation, but in preparation for programs in Campinas City and in Americana. So what I remember is, yeah, first we had a program in Americana, like I think it was one day before we were having the program in Americana. We went around in the city center to give pamphlets out to invite people to be part of to come over to the program. And so for me, because one of the things which I sort of lamented of myself growing up is like the very little experience that I had in actually giving people realization. Back in the day, I used to be part of like these sort of youth activities where we'd set up stalls in the city, in a park in the city, and invite people to give realization. But I didn't at that age. I didn't actually actively give realization because I was very self-conscious, and I always thought like, what do I say? How do I do it without doubting myself and sounding silly? So in relation to that topic, it's definitely something I want to touch on. That this tour allowed me to sort of break out of that shell in a way. When I went to Campinas, when we're walking around with the pamphlets, I the problem is I gave very few pamphlets up because I was sort of very self-conscious, saying like, what do I say? What do I say? Yeah, come over to this program. We do meditation, and it was at a time when I was just learning Portuguese. So I was feeling the need to sort of put into practice the basic Portuguese that I knew, but it didn't end up being that bad. I was able to give pamphlets to a few people. In fact, one of the things I wanted to mention is that one of you remember Uncle Antonio. from
Yeah,
Spain.
Spain. Yeah.
He's a very interesting man. I really admire him. Because he lives in Galicia. In Galicia, they speak Galician, which just like Catalan, is a dialect of Latin. So I think Galician is the language from which Portuguese was derived. And what Uncle Antonio would do in every instance when we were going around inviting people to be to come over to the programs, because if you speak Galician, a Portuguese person can actually understand you. So he would go around just not simply giving pamphlets, but actually giving realization to people speaking in Galician, and they understood him well. And I like lost count like the number of people that he was already giving realization to, and it was just something just so wonderful to see that it sort of, I wouldn't say I felt envious, but it was because I was at that point where I was thinking, okay, what do I do to sort of break free of this shell where I'm sort of doubting myself when it comes to giving realization. I was like saying, oh my gosh, when I saw that, but it motivated me to actually to try because effortlessly he was going around, and it was definitely something which I started noticing first in Americana when we were there. So yeah, later on we went to have lunch. We were going to go to the venue, remember? Remember how it started raining so heavily? Because unfortunately in the summer it's it's monsoon season in Brazil. It doesn't matter if in the morning it's nice and sunny. If it's like really hot, then it's bound to rain sooner or later. So we're heading to the venue, but then it starts raining heavily that the streets get flooded, that we have to go back to Campinas, and it was like, oh my God, look, the streets are like becoming rivers. Um, so yeah, unfortunately, we didn't get to see the venue as we had expected, but it didn't matter because the program was the next day anyway. Which brings me, speaking of rain, uh, the program in Americana for me was the first program I got to be a part of in preparing. And it wasn't it interesting how as soon as the program started in that venue that we had in Americana, that's when it started raining cats and dogs.
Yeah.
And I was at the door, greeting people in like the very basic Portuguese that I was like learning. And yeah, again, it wasn't so bad. Remember Uncle Marcos from Americana? He like one of his daughters was there, and she was like listening to the way that I was talking to the guest in Portuguese, and she was like straight away telling me that my Portuguese was already very good. I was like, wow, really? Because I thought it was like, yeah, 50-50. Like imagine that, like a little girl telling you that. It felt very, refreshing and encouraging, and it definitely showed me that I was on the right track in the learning of my Portuguese because almost every yogi with whom I was practicing my Portuguese with, every single one of them was telling me that I speak it well. I mean, I think it's mainly because I like to anchor myself in the similarities it has with Spanish and with Italian, which I'm also studying at university. Um, but as soon as it started raining heavily, it almost felt like Noah's Ark. The guests had come in to be part of the program to witness the performances and everything. It wasn't raining heavily when everyone was coming. I mean, the clouds were gathering shore, but I was at the door trying to like because the wind was blowing. I had to make sure that the door didn't shut because they were made of glass and you didn't want them to break. I had to not only keep watch of that, but I also had to make sure that there wasn't any guest who was arriving late and trapped at the mercy of the rainfall. So I had to like make sure that they can come in easily. They're like luckily there wasn't really that many people that came in after that. But yeah, the fact that it started raining as soon as the program started, it was yeah, it literally felt like everyone had come into Noah's Ark.
Yeah, I don't have too many pictures, but I have a film about that. So on this channel, which we will be together very soon, when I will
Mhm.
upload this, on the same channel, you will have a lot of clips um, with some footages from all the stuff we are talking now, and
Mhm.
also I just put early an illustration about the location in
Campina.
Campinas where we
Mhm.
stay. So I'm not able, I should do my homework, but you will have these images on the
Uh-huh.
channel if you want it. I have some pictures from the camp, which was much nicer. But this is the road inside of the so-called, you call it village, but I learned that wasn't part. This one was part of the Campinas. Okay,
Yeah.
not the obviously the downtown of the city, but still belong to Campinas, and the
Yeah.
roads were like you see them here. Lucky, although we have some rain, we don't have the flood, so we the roads was easy
Yeah.
to deal with, but very very small. And our bus, I remember, have a problem at one stage to reach the destination.
Oh
Our
yeah, we had to like yeah, it was like when we were coming back from Campinas that day that I was talking about where we didn't get to see the venue. Yeah, the bus had to reverse
Yeah,
like back because it was yeah, because that whole area it's like something of a I wouldn't say it's a labyrinth, but you know, it's a lot of like roads crisscrossing one another. Yeah, it's like yeah, it's an interesting sort of yeah, countryside sort of location. But yeah, luckily but in relation to the bus that we chose, I mean, it's one of the things that I admire the people that organize the tour because you know, from I mean, it's something that we're going to get to later on, you know, when we pretty much reach the end of the tour by Rio. But you can tell the efforts that they went through throughout the year, finding the best deal possible because they were trying to be mindful of like transport services that maybe were a bit shady. They were trying to scam you out of your money. So so we can sort of tell that there's a reason why they chose this particular service that we use for traveling. And it was actually worth it. Yeah, I really loved how it had internet and everything. I mean, yeah, they use Starlink and very amazing fellows, the two drivers that we had.
yeah. It's a very good point, and I was talking with few other people about this subject. But on the other hand, um, I don't know. Maybe it's better to take into consideration the whole all the people who are going in the tour, because yes, that's a
Yeah,
point. You have to make it cheapest as possible for many people to come. I remember 5 years ago when I've been in my first tour in Sahaja in Romania. We spread Sahaja after in our first year, the second year of Sahaja, but we were much much younger, and we really don't care about that. But honestly, for example, you talk about distributing leaflets around. I was able to do that in Florianopolis on the beach, although
mhm,
was was very hot and long and whatever. But when it's come to uh, Campinas, um, I was completely drained. So when I reached Campinas in the morning after the whole night, not able to sleep properly, uh, we weren't able to go to do all. Anyway, there are enough people to do that, but you have a little
yeah,
frustration that you cannot do because the reason you are there is to do Sahaj work. But if
yeah,
you are squeezed after a not very good night, so we missed that one. For example, we didn't went to Americanas for distributing the pamphlets. So and
yeah,
the flyers.
yeah,
Yeah, but uh, the next program was in Campinas in a very interesting hall.
yeah.
And was your first program? Do you remember what was your impression about that?
Well, the first program for me was the Americanas one.
In
Um,
Americanas,
Americana, yeah.
not in
And
Campinas.
then after that we went to Campinas.
No, we've been
No,
twice.
as in like because
We've been
Campinas
twice in
City,
Campinas, in a different
yeah, like Campinas, yeah, in the
location.
city center.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, in
So
Campinas city center. So first the program was in Americana, and
yes,
then after that was the program in Campinas City.
yes, and
Um,
after that another Campinas.
yeah, yeah, it was in a park.
Yes, yes,
There were a lot of capybaras. Yeah, I actually
yes,
like but before I get to that one, yeah, it was an interesting venue. The one that they had in Campinas City. It's like the sort of venue where you'd have I think was that the one where they said that they have like orchestras that would play um
yeah,
and yeah, it's right in the middle of the city center. Um, yeah, it was because remember the venue in Americana was like yeah, like a local venue, you know, with like as a like sails, like tarpaulin on the roof. That's why like a little bit of rain was able to seep in when it was raining like heavily. That
yeah,
but this was like one of those like big venues where they have big events, big performances, orchestra type. So it's not like a local venue. It's like an urban venue for big events that would happen in the city. I yeah, I really like that particular venue. It's sort of place where they have exhibitions as well.
yeah. The hall in Campinas was yeah, yeah, very good. I love it. So we I will show you the view from outside of Campinas, a very big hall. So this
So,
one was the entrance of the hall. Was a bit of challenge for us to find it because one night or one day before my glasses were broken. So I
mm,
spent the whole morning going to find optometrist, which wasn't very difficult because you have optometrist every three or four shops. It's an
mhm,
optometrist. So looks
mm,
like the people in Brazil need a lot of glasses, but was a challenge for me because I have to go to three places for them to be able to fix my glasses. They need prescription, they need a lot of stuff. In the end, I have a when I need glasses for the distance. So I have my shades, which was a prescription glasses. So they just take the shades, read the numbers, and do another stuff. So I need the whole morning to do that, and after that to find the place, which looks like we take a different way to find it. Anyway, a very beautiful place, inside and outside as well.
mhm.
How you find the program there?
It was yeah, it was like I don't remember the numbers, but I don't know if it was the same as the amount of people that came to Americana because in Americana we didn't really fill up the venue that much, but I think we had more numbers in that in that program.
Yeah,
Yeah, it definitely felt more full on compared to like Americana because as I said the venue there was like pretty simple, just like
yeah,
an outdoor venue located in another suburb in the city.
yeah,
But with Campinos, it felt like a big night out.
yeah,
And it didn't rain this time, but even if it did, yeah, we were protected by the roof. It's pretty interesting. Yeah, it's interesting architecture that cultural center as it's called that it has. Um, but yeah, it was, I don't know how many people, yeah, like I said, like filled up the venue, but it was because at first I was mainly watching the door to sort of greet the guests in, like I was doing in Americana, continuing to practice my Portuguese and everything. And the rangolis that they had like prepared outside, that artwork that they prepared with the rangolis, and then there was like the signage and everything. So at the beginning, I was mainly sort of like a door person until like almost no one came in. Uh, but yeah, but just like seeing it from that perspective, in a venue like that, it was I just thought, wow, this is we really do mean business when it in a way to say it like that. With what we're doing in Brazil already, I was like already like the second program in, and I was already enjoying it. I was like, no, the time was flying as well because when you have something to do, you don't really notice how quick like time is going. So that's why it's like been more than a month since we got back from Brazil. A lot has happened, but time just flew like that. It's curious.
Yeah, yeah. I find comparing Campinas, first of all, Americana is much smaller than Campinas. Only a few 100,000 people live in Americana, and Campinas, it's a bigger place, probably more than 1 million. So that was reflected in the venues as well, and in the number of people who came in to our programs, and also the weather. It's true. Si- since only in Florianopolis doesn't rain.
Mm.
After Florianopolis, every program um, we have sometime heavy rain, sometime just yeah, a normal rain, but was very very yeah, wet. All our programs, nearly everywhere. I don't know if it was a program without raining, but the one in Americana was um, also um, with a lot of noise, with a lot of thundering, and yeah. So we experience the manifestation of Sri Vishnu Maya from the nearly from the beginning. Not in Florianopolis, it's true, but
Mhm.
from Americanas on was yeah. Um, so. How you relate to the musical program, to the way of how the public program was held?
Yeah, I really like the way that it was structured was actually quite interesting. I really enjoyed how when I think it was like Auntie Katya, and then it was like sometimes it was the girls who organized the tour like Alini and Kalyani, where they'd actually have like before we get into the performances, they're introducing the audience members into what Sahaja Yoga is, and sort of giving them their realization. Put your hand here. Uh, say, Mother, I am the spirit. I actually really enjoyed that because just by watching that, I started getting an idea of that in reality I was overthinking the entire time when it comes to what it is I should say when you are trying to give realization to someone. What are the things that you should be explaining to them? And it's not that much. It's not something that you should be you know, going over it again and again, plus that you're overthinking. So just by watching that, it really gave me an insight into what are the things I could say and could do when it's my turn to actually give realization. And then the performances, like it's sort of like it gave me flashbacks to the times when we ended up having seminars, big seminars back when I was at ISPS all those years, particularly in the middle of the year when we'd invite people from around India to come all the way to ISPS, and we have these like bhajans, dance performances, and there was just like such wonderful experiences that I had when I was there. So watching the performances that we had as part of the tour was almost felt like I was reliving all that, and it was like yeah, the fun never ends. And yeah, even though I didn't get to be part of the singing, but it would have been nice. But you know at that time, it's not something that was really, calling out to me. I was more interested in sort of helping out with the preparation, and especially greeting the guests as they were coming in. It was, yeah, like it was another wonderful experience, very, ecstatic, if you will. It was, yeah, just like I said, like like worth every cent that I spent, reinserting myself into a Sahaj related activity like this. Because the last time I did something like this was when I went to Italy at the end of 2019 when I was part of the UVA seminar over in Rome. But then after that, over the years, I wasn't really involved in anything big that was Sahaj related. So whether it was ISPS, whether it was Rome, yeah, Brazil, like another magical experience, if you will.
Yes. Um, I asked you before we start to tell me what was your peak in the tour, not in the seminar. There are some things who how should I put it, blow up your mind or something like that. Which was the most touching moments?
Uh, I definitely enjoyed when, remember after the program that we had in Sao Paulo, which we're getting to, right? Because that was after the program we had in Campinas.
Yes,
Yeah, in Sao Paulo, we had to do a stopover. Before the program, we obviously didn't have time to go about to do some exploring, even though Sao Paulo is a big city and there's definitely much to explore. Um, because it's like a 2.5 hour drive from where we were staying in Campinas, it it wasn't logistically possible that we go back and have dinner at Campinas itself. That's why we ended up having dinner at one of the ashram, at the ashram in Sao Paulo. They had it all prepared. And but you remember how we were there? I don't know how long we stayed there because it wasn't so long. It was like less than an hour. We have dinner, and then everyone just started singing and dancing with Uncle Tonino, who wrote "Sobi Sobi Kundalini," that song that we kept on singing again and again in the tour. That it ended up becoming the song, like one of the songs that got stuck in people's heads. It was like I was expecting it just to be like just an average sort of dinner where we're going to be sitting, chatting with each other, talking about what we're thinking of the tour so far. But within little time, the whole like floor just erupted into singing, and it was like wow. And the problem is, like I was still eating my dinner, and I was like, bro, I got to finish. I've got to jump in as well. This is something that's too good to miss out.
that
Um,
one was after the program. Remember?
After the program in Sao Paulo, yeah,
Yes, yes, after the program.
that
Uh,
was definitely something fun. Yeah,
I'm able to show you a few images from inside of
Sobi
the.
Sobi Kundalini. That song.
This is an image from inside of the compound where we stay in Campinas. So it was very very
Yeah,
nice. This this area.
it felt like something like a mini resort in a way.
Yes, yes. Was actually I reckon was a camp designed uh, for kids or for extra activities or for groups, because I don't have here pictures about the dorms, but the dorms probably were about under 10 beds each.
Yeah,
So that was the location. So coming back to our subject, um, the peak, how should I put it, the peak of the tour. At this stage in we are in
Sao
Rio
Paulo.
now. We are in Rio now, or close.
No, yeah, because after
No,
Sao Paulo we went to Mogi das Cruzes.
yes. Actually, yeah. After Campinas, the next leg
Yeah,
was Moji, and
yeah,
from Moji, where we stay in an ashram,
yeah,
which I didn't. So
yeah,
Delia and I, we go to some other place, find it very, very crowded. So from that place, we've been to two programs, one in Moji,
yeah.
one in a neighboring city
São
called
José dos Campos.
Sao Jose dos Campos. So we
yeah,
have two programs there. For us was an adventure to reach the second one because I was
yeah,
outside town, and we
yeah,
book with the help of someone from the hotel. They give us the address, but
yeah,
obviously something was wrong there. Uh, and the the driver find a route which was very, very long and on the countryside. So
yeah,
nearly half of the route or half of the way we drive off-road, not on
yeah,
the not yeah not on the motorway. So from the Moji to Sao Jose dos Campos, it's a motorway. No,
yeah,
half of the way he drive us on the uh, um, off roads.
yeah,
We was quite not scared but uncomfortable.
yeah,
And what was worst, he obviously um, was something wrong with the address. We reached a point which wasn't our destination, was another
yeah.
hall. So from
Mm,
there we have to have another Uber to drive
yeah,
us more than half an hour to reach
yeah,
our real destination. So usually I like to be there 1 hour before, maybe
yeah,
even more, to make sure that I I set everything to feel my change a little bit. Yeah.
yeah,
So for us was an adventure. This the
yeah,
first one, Moji, inside of Moji was easy and yeah,
yeah.
very good. Actually, both programs was very good.
And for those who don't know, the in the ashram that we were staying in Moji, located in the street named after Shimaji.
Oh yes, that's a very good information.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
But basically, the name of the street was Shrimataji Nirmala Devi Street in Portuguese.
Yes, yes,
So
Shimata.
I don't know how long ago that they were able to establish that with the local council there in Moji. Yeah, Moji das Cruzes is a really, really quiet sort of area. Yeah, it's a town. Yeah, it's a quiet town. Because yeah, in Campinas you're more in the countryside. So now staying in Mogi das Cruzes in that really really big ashram that they have. But yeah, as you said, it did get a bit crowded, a bit on that floor. Yeah, I remember when we arrived there, it was I think some of us were sort of struggling to decide who's going to sleep where, even though it was a pretty big space for us to be sleeping. Um, yeah, we wasn't. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, wasn't exactly easy. But overall, I did like the ashram. Like, it's a very, very wonderful place that they built there.
All yeah, Moji was a it's a small town comparing with other big towns in Brazil. About 500,000 people, and not very many tourists there. I
Yeah,
remember the people from the hotel we stay told us. I mean, they were quite curious. What are you doing here? Because that's not a touristic place. So they are
yeah.
quite yeah, shocked. So from there we go to Rio,
Yes,
one of the yeah nearly the last leg, the last big leg because there's another one but smaller.
yeah.
So
Because like for more than a week, we were actually holed up in São Paulo state because we're in Campinas, Americana, Mogi das Cruzes, so all that part of São Paulo state.
yes, yes. But to be able to do that, we have two locations. One in Campinas, you call it countryside, and
Yeah,
one in Moji, which
yeah,
more or less it's siding two sides of Sao Paulo, which it's
yeah.
huge. It's true. And from there, I remember was a day trip to Sao Paulo as well, to to visit Sao
Yes, yeah.
Paulo.
Before we left for Rio, some of us actually decided to take a trip down to São Paulo and
Yeah,
explore what we didn't get to explore.
yeah.
Were you able to explore São Paulo?
No, because I want to rest. That's one
Oh yeah, that
reason.
was the
But
day when.
the second reason was that
Yeah.
we already been there in our way from to Florianopolis. We landed in Sao Paulo, and
Yeah.
we reached Sao Paulo 2 days before the tour started. So we don't
Hmm.
want to be early in Florianopolis. Therefore, we spent 2 nights in Sao Paulo. We have
São
a
Paulo.
full day to visit Sao Paulo, and lucky me, now I realize how lucky we were, because it's very difficult to find someone to speak English in Brazil on the
Yeah.
streets. Also, the taxi driver is very difficult to find a taxi driver who speak English. But
Hmm.
the first moment we reach Sao Paulo, my first thing, without knowing all this kind of stuff, I go to the taxi drivers, all the
Yeah.
guy, and I ask for the guy who speak English. And
Yeah.
usually you don't. After that, I realize you are not so lucky. But
Yeah.
was night, after 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock in the night.
Hmm.
We were so lucky. Then we find a guy who speak English, and he was
Hmm.
able not only to drive to our hotel, but drive us next day, nearly whole day, and showing us everything, going with us to the Pinacoteca and everywhere, showing us everything. So we were very, very lucky. We've been to the cathedral as well. I know you've been there. The
Yeah, it was mainly around that area, but yeah,
Yeah.
and the São Paulo Chinatown, or as it's known, Liberdade. Yeah, very, yeah, because we all went to like like went to like a restaurant, like Asian restaurant sort of area.
hmm Yeah, yeah. I know you have a good time there, but we prefer to rest. And to put in the perspective, I told you that we don't stay in this ashram. We were quite again very, very tired. At some stages in that tour, at least I, because Delia managed to sleep a little bit better in the bus, I was in the
Yeah.
verge of exhaustion. So
Mm.
uh, when we reach um, when we reach the ashram, and was very, very crowded, and very difficult to reach the toilet and everything. So I said, I asked organizer to help me to find a hotel, and
Yeah.
they find me a hotel. They come with me, and the the hotel, yeah, we go to sleep straight away.
Mhm.
Very good hotel in the central area. And next day, we find the guy who speak English at the reception, and he told us that the supermarket and few other things are just 50, 40, 50 meters from there, and the
Yeah.
shopping mall was just across the street. So we have all facilities there, including laundromat. And he
Yeah.
came he came with us to help us to read everything, and to manage to help us to do the laundries. So we were so lucky that we spent those two days, managed to uh, rest, wash our clothes, everything was fine. uh, Anyway, was very good, and we managed to come to the programs as well. So in the evening, we managed to do the program. So was a for us was a good rest, that one.
Yeah.
So from there we go to Rio,
Yeah.
Niterói, Rio. And there was another good experience, and something new for maybe a lot of us, because we've been to the Nirmala site.
Yes. The hidden gem, that place.
Yeah,
It's
do you
like
remember?
located in the middle. I'm actually curious as to how they built that place because remember when we arrived, we couldn't take the bus all the way up to the place because it's like after that it's like a narrow jungle sort of area. So that's why the yogis living over there have to come down with their cars, first transport the luggages up, and then after that pick up people. And I remember I was in the same car as you and Auntie Delia, and we it was Uncle Bruno that took us up. And it gets to a point where the path becomes narrow that you got to make sure that there isn't another car coming. Otherwise, if there is, you have to sort of negotiate with them. You got to like reverse back, and then when they're gone, then you can like move forward. So yeah, it's that sort of jungle terrain in Niterói. But yeah, I'm just and then after that, when we get to the place, it's like, wow, this place is like a hidden place. It's like located, like I said, a hidden gem. And I just thought to myself, wow, like the efforts that they must have put in building this place at the time, I'm like, wow,
Yeah, to put that in perspective, like in Campinas, the road I show you a little bit early, I show to the people who are watching because you knew. Um, there are many places where if you get off the main road with asphalt and everything, very good roads and big and motorways, 6 lines, if you get a little bit few k's apart, you start to have just off roads. You have to have no, not even gravel. So I was quite shocked about that. I mean, Brazil, it's quite yeah, not rich country, but it's not a poor country. So I was wondering why this kind of infrastructure cannot be addressed, because the houses and everything, like in Campinas, the place we stay was fantastic. But to reach there, you have to drive on those roads I show you 10 minutes
yeah,
before. Was the same here, and was remote, but not as remote. Because if you remember, the road we are talking about, which was earth, completely earth,
yeah,
um,
it was slope basically.
yeah, a bit slow. There are few others exits. So there are few others little farms or other little compounds there. And I
Yeah,
was wondering, the people in our case, how many houses was there? About five houses of
yeah,
Sahaja and one
yeah,
common building with the
yeah,
meditation room. We have to tell to the people who listen that there live only Sahaja Yogi. They call it Nirmal site, and they have their own houses with a little bit of uh, land around, very not too much. Um, and they have a common place for meditation and for kitchen. They have everything there. Yeah.
yeah,
So they live together. So we've been assigned to different uh, people who live there, and we stay for about 3 nights.